Before we start this video, we wanted to mention we're doing an iPad mini giveaway currently, and you can enter by just clicking on the screen now and going to that video. Hey guys, what's up? Today we're going to be comparing the iPad mini to the Kindle Fire HD and seeing which tablet is all in all better. So the first thing we're going to do is go over the hardware of the two devices. Now we have the Kindle Fire HD on the right and the iPad mini on the left. The iPad mini carries a 7.9-inch display opposed to the Kindle Fire HD, which has a 7-inch, and you can see that is a big difference just viewing both of these. You have a lot larger room, even though it's a 0.9 inches, that is measured diagonally, so that gives a lot more room to the iPad mini. So that's a definite plus for the iPad mini. You also have a physical button, home button on the iPad mini, and that's something that the Kindle Fire HD lacks. You'll just have a software panel on the bottom like you see in a lot of Android devices where you can just hit the home button and that will work as an equivalent. They both have cameras. You can see the one on the Kindle Fire is on the top of the portrait mode, and then you have it on the top right here on the iPad mini. Both the cameras are pretty similar, and I don't recommend taking pictures with a tablet at all. I think that's a pretty bad idea, but if you have to, both of them will suffice. Observe the thinness of the two devices. They're pretty similar, although you'll notice the Kindle Fire HD is a little more curved and is a tiny bit taller when you count it from the middle. But all in all, they're both pretty thin. Flipping the two devices onto the back, you'll see the Kindle Fire HD has its speaker systems on the two sides of the back, and it has this sort of more plasticky feel opposed to the iPad, which has a metal backing, which in my opinion feels a lot nicer. Some may argue that they like the Kindle Fire HD, but ultimately I think it feels a little more plasticky and cheap. Now you see you also have a back-facing camera on the iPad, which is something that's not included in the Kindle Fire. Now, as we view the bottom of both devices, you'll see the iPad has the two speaker grills right here and a lightning connector, and then the Kindle Fire has two connectors. You can use one of them. Both of them serve to charge the device and sync with your computer. So here we have the Kindle Fire HD on the top and the iPad mini on the bottom, and although the Kindle Fire HD only has a 7-inch screen opposed to the iPad mini 7.9-inch screen, you can see that the two devices are pretty similar in size. You see that little difference amount. I have it level on this side, so it's a very small difference in the size of the two actual physical devices, which is definitely a plus side for the iPad mini because it has a larger screen. Now the last thing I want to talk about is build quality of the two devices. Now with the Kindle Fire you're getting more of a plasticky device. As you can see, with attention to detail Apple puts on the bezel around the device, the nice metal casing, it just feels a lot better than the Kindle Fire, so I definitely have to give the design to the iPad mini for both the larger screen and the overall better feeling design. Now the next thing I wanted to talk about is a really big aspect, and that is the software of the devices. Now here on the iPad mini you have a simple slide to unlock. You can choose your wallpaper right there and we'll slide that to unlock. And then on the Kindle Fire HD you have an actual ad which intrudes on unlocking a device. Now I find this really annoying. It just doesn't feel comfortable having just random ads popping up on your lock screen. Just something that gets on my nerve. Another big thing is they'll advertise what other people bought. At least the advertising is generally relevant and for the actual device, but sometimes it's completely different for like a MasterCard or something, and that's just a huge downside for the Kindle Fire. The iPad mini is very similar to the iPad. It runs all the same applications. The only difference is it's a little smaller and it has a smaller resolution screen. On the flip side, on the Kindle Fire HD, your interface is a lot different. It's basically skinned completely by Amazon, and there's no way other than rooting it to get out of this. So you're basically stuck with this interface which shows all your current applications you've been using on a carousel, and then you can switch between your apps and stuff like that with the menu on the top. Now it's a kind of confusing. I know if you use it for a while and you're not an avid iOS user like myself, you can get used to it, but things generally don't look that good. You'll see icons that aren't the right resolution or have white borders and ultimately don't look that great, and you'll see that switching between pages actually lags a bit sometimes, especially if you want to just view all your stuff. The interface is pretty much one of the worst I've ever used for a tablet. I know I'm not really showing it off too well on here, but I really highly recommend just using the simple iPad interface. And again, you can see the advertising down at the bottom, so there goes a good chunk of your screen real estate that's already pretty small because it's only 7 inches and a lot is taken from the bezel. So the next thing worth comparing is the app stores on both devices. On the iPad mini, you have a huge variety of apps. I believe it's over 100,000 personally optimized for the iPad experience. That means no apps that were originally for the iPod Touch and just scaled up. They're redesigned applications that work really smooth, and you'll see pretty much every application that you've heard of on the iOS App Store. Now, on the flip side, on the Kindle Store, you are extremely limited. Not only are you limited to Android applications, which are now catching up and a lot bigger than they were previously, but Amazon actually filters out and only allows apps to go through their process. So you have an extremely limited amount of applications, and a lot of the ones I've tried are nothing compared to the iPad, design-wise are nothing compared to the iPad apps. So you can see here you have the App Store. Even the App Store looks really limited. You'll see you sort of have some loading issues. I believe it takes a little while to load on the iPad mini as well, but you'll just see the design of the App Store also. It takes a while to load each page. And here on the iPad mini, you have a more smoother interface with just a huge selection of apps that you just can't possibly get on the Kindle Fire. Now that's pretty much one of the biggest upsides, because pretty much ultimately what you're going to be doing on your tablet is just using applications, whether it's using social media or playing games. You're just going to get a way bigger variety on the iPad mini. So I thought I'd go head to head with an application running on both the devices. Now we have Temple Run, and you can see you're already greeted with something Game Center on the iPad mini. That's another feature that the Kindle Fire obviously doesn't have. It's not that great, I don't use it that much, but if you like to compete and play with friends, then that's cool. So we have the game running on both versions. You can see on the iPad mini it displays a lot bigger, so you have more screen real estate. Temple Run isn't really a game where you need screen real estate, but for other applications where you have like views or when you're browsing the web or something like that, it's a lot nicer on the iPad mini. On the flip side, the Kindle Fire HD, the screen is a little higher resolution, but you really don't notice that much. It's not as good as the Retina display, but as you know, the iPad mini doesn't even feature that. So let's go and hit play and see how both run. So you can see they both run pretty much the same. I'm doing the tutorial on one, and this is really hard to play on both devices, but we'll try that. And then I fell off on the Kindle Fire HD, which means it's obviously worse. Just kidding. But seriously, both games run pretty smoothly. When you're in the applications, I don't really notice much lag or difference between the two devices, but when going through the interfaces, you'll definitely notice more lag on the Kindle Fire HD. Now another task you do a lot on tablet is browsing the web. While browsing the web might not be as important as applications, you'll often find yourself needing to look something up. So here I have the browser loaded on both devices. The first thing that pops out to me is the keyboard on the iPad is a lot easier to type on because it's a lot bigger, and the Kindle Fire is smaller, but that's obviously because of the screen size. So now we're just going to hit go at the same time and load up Jailbreak Nation and see which device can go faster. Ready, set, and both of them are loading, looks like pretty much the same speed. And there we go. So you can see Jailbreak Nation, it took a little while for the little bar to pop up. But you can see if you scroll around on the Kindle Fire, that little bar takes a little more time to load and then smoother on the iPad. But ultimately they both load pretty much the same time. And you can see here, I'll just scroll down and then click on a post on both. And then see that they both load very similar, maybe a little faster on the iPad mini, but all in all, it has to do more with the browser. You can see you can pinch to zoom on both, but it's a little more smooth, and it aliases the text a little bit faster on the iPad mini. And combined with the larger screen real estate, it's a lot easier to browse on the iPad mini. But the Kindle Fire is a pretty viable solution because it does load pretty much the same speed, just some things take a little longer, and browsing in general may not be as nice. Now the next thing I'm going to be comparing on these two devices is the content libraries. You see, Apple owns iTunes, which is pretty much the biggest marketplace for music. Amazon has their own music place, which has all the most popular music, but you'll get a little more vast variety on iTunes, so that's definitely a plus for the iPad mini. Now on the second hand, the Kindle Fire is obviously known for books. It comes with an upgrade version of the Kindle, which comes from a huge marketplace of books. So comparing that to the iPad alternative, which is iBooks, you'll get a better selection on the Kindle Fire. Now when it comes to videos, I believe they're both pretty similar. If you have Prime, you can get a few extra features on this, but they're not too big, so I wouldn't really worry about that too much. But ultimately, it depends on really what you want. If you want apps and music more, then the iPad is a lot better, and if you're more into like reading and watching, I guess, videos, then the Kindle Fire is better content-wise. So that pretty much wraps up our comparison with the iPad mini and the Kindle Fire HD. So I'm quickly going to list over a few of the specs so you can get a feeling of which device all in all is better. My personal opinion would obviously be the iPad mini, but the Kindle Fire does have a few advantages. Now first off, the Kindle Fire costs $200 opposed to the iPad mini's $330, so it's definitely a bit cheaper. Secondly, the Kindle Fire HD, the screen is a little bit higher resolution, so that's nice, but there's not too much to that. Also, the Kindle Fire HD has a larger bookstore, so that's pretty cool, and it's a tiny bit smaller than the iPad mini. On the other hand, the iPad mini has way more apps, which generally have a way higher quality. The interface is a lot nicer. The screen is way bigger, which is a huge plus, probably one of the biggest pluses, combined with the fact that there are more applications. And all in all, the design of the device, in my opinion, is a lot nicer. It's more metal opposed to the plastic of the Kindle Fire HD. Unless you don't have extra $130, and even if you do, I'd recommend saving up and getting the iPad mini. It's all in all a better investment. I believe you'll have a better experience with it. I know I'm very biased Apple-wise, but I've even talked to many people that like Android and would obviously consider the iPad mini over the Kindle Fire HD.